Hello everyone, welcome to the video. Today we will be installing disc brakes in place of the drum brakes on the Corolla. So this is going to be kind of a how-to / guide video on how to replace the drum brakes with disc brakes for a 9th gen Corolla, which is 03 to 08. This video I think is also relevant to 7th gen Celicas, as well as the 1st gen Matrix that are equipped with drum brakes. So today I'm going to show you how to swap them over to discs. Hold on, pause the video. Hello, it's me, voiceover Will. You may be wondering why I'm here. Well, pretty much it's because I did a horrendous job at explaining literally everything when doing this install. So it's now my job now to explain all this stuff to you so you know what to do, because otherwise you're not gonna learn anything. So the first thing that you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to source the parts. Now when you do the swap, you have the choice of 3 vehicles to take parts off of. You have the 7th gen Celica GTS, the 9th gen Corolla XRS, and the 1st gen Matrix XRS. All of these cars share the exact same backing, exact same caliper setup. Everything is exactly the same except for the brake line, and what I know for certain is the parking brake cable. That is going to be different. They differ in lengths between Celica, Corolla, and Matrix. So, for example, if you do this swap onto a Corolla, you have to use the parking brake cable from a Corolla XRS. Now, depending on how much you want to spend, you can either buy it used or you can buy it new. So these are the parts that I have here. I have the backing plate from a Celica GTS. I have 2 brand new calipers for a Corolla XRS. I have 2 brand new stainless steel braided brake lines. You don't have to use them if you don't want, but since I wanted to use braided brake lines, I did. New pads and rotors. I would recommend getting new pads and rotors because you might be ending up with something that may have been a bit abused or something if you get used pads and rotors. So if you get them new, then you know that they've never been used before, and so you won't have any issues when you drive. I also have a brand new parking brake cable from a Corolla XRS, or for a Corolla XRS. It wasn't really from any car. Again, you can get them used, you can get them new. It doesn't matter. The only thing that's different is the amount of money you pay. Now you may notice that I don't have a hub here, and that is because I will be reusing the hub that's already on the car. It makes no difference if you use the hub that's already on the car or if you get a hub for an XRS/GTS. They are all the same. There's no difference in anything. So it doesn't matter if you reuse it or if you don't. It doesn't matter. So that's pretty much all of the parts that's going to go onto the car. Right, so now is onto the disassembly. So first up, we're going to jack up the car and take the wheels off. And in my case, I have a wheel spacer there, so we're also going to have to remove that. Always put some sort of lubricant or something behind your wheel spacers, because that was way too much of a headache. Now on the drum face thing, is that what it's called? The front part thing there are 2 M8 by 1.25 bolts. You're gonna have to screw them both in and then alternate tightening each one until the drum face rotor thing comes out. Be careful, don't leave the parking brake on or you're gonna have some difficulty. I definitely did not leave the parking brake on, and I definitely did not have difficulty. I've just come to an amazing conclusion. Alright, you ready to hear this? I have forgotten the parking brake on. And in fact, I'm pretty sure my suspicions are confirmed if we look in here. And the parking brake is in fact on. That's why it doesn't come out. And I'm the guy here trying to give the tutorial on how to do this, and I'm messing up the most basic part of this swap. Well, that is definitely interesting. So once that thing falls off, now we have this. It's kind of just the inside of the drum. So at this point, we can go ahead and undo the hub bolts. So in order to get to the parking brake cables, we have to take off the exhaust heat shield. So in order to do this, we have to disconnect the muffler and remove this small little brace, like chassis brace thing at the bottom. When you do this install, you'll see it. You'll know what you're looking at. Once you remove that, then just undo all of the 10mm bolts holding in the heat shield, and then you can just pull the exhaust down and just kind of yank the heat shield out of there. It'll need a little bit of wiggling, but you'll get there. You can also remove the hangers. If you have a tool for it, it's super easy to do. You can remove the hangers that's holding it on, and then the whole exhaust will just kind of drop down to the ground and it'll just sit there, and then taking off the heat shield is a breeze. So I'm going to steal a picture here from a great write-up, because it's kind of hard to get like a somewhat large camera under a car that doesn't have a lot of space under there. And yes, I know I could have lifted the car higher. Thanks for telling me, hindsight. But pretty much when you go to remove the parking brake cables, you will just follow it. There will be 3 10mm bolts to remove, and you'll just remove all of those. And then once you remove all of those, there's this little clip thing. I don't know exactly how to describe it. When you do the install, if you just like feel around up there a little bit, you'll find this small little hole where the cable will just kind of drop, and you'll be able to remove it from that little clip piece. But you'll know what you're looking at. Both cables end there, and then they kind of become one at that point. So if that makes any sense. But the heat shield is sitting over there. Pretty much behind there, you'll know what you're looking at. You can kind of see it. There's a little thing up there, and you have to unhook the parking brake cable from that little piece. And once you have all of that removed, then you can just pull the parking brake cable out, and then we disconnect the brake hose. Now I had a little bit of trouble with this, so I just ended up cutting the brake hose in half because I got tired, and then just unscrewed it. See, now it's easy. So you may or may not have to cut that line in half. I don't know, kind of just depends on your car. And now we'll just slip that through. Nice and easy. Just like that. We'll just leave it just like that. And then that's it. That is the drum setup fully out of the car. So now if we're going to reuse the hub, I have this set up here where the backing plate for the drum brakes is just sitting on the bricks, and I take a hammer and I strike the back of the hub, and eventually it'll drop. If you give it enough hits, it'll drop through, and you'll have no issues. Now getting the backing plate and hub to bolt back up to the car is a little bit tricky. It takes some patience, but you'll eventually get it. It's just kind of lining it up and slowly turning the bolt in until you feel it thread in a little bit. And once you feel it thread in a little bit, then you know it's lined up, and then you can start threading in all the other ones, and then you can go on to tightening them. Now I do need to mention here, you need longer bolts, because the hub bolts that you took out of the car are not going to be long enough, because the backing plate for the disc brakes is a fair margin thicker than the backing plate for the drum brakes. So you're going to need a longer bolt. I'm kind of kicking myself right now because I wasn't able to find the exact size of the threads for the hub bolts, but if you remove the hub, and you can take it to a hardware store, and then you can just try out different bolts in it until you find the one that fits, and then that's the one to use. So once you have the hub and backing plate bolted, then you run the new parking brake cable just along the same route that the old parking brake cable went, and then you just reinstall the 3 bolts they took out, and then that's it. That's the parking brake done. Now if you want, like what I'm doing here, I've put the rotor on and I've pulled the e-brake, and tested it, and it is working. Lovely days. I've just done up the parking brake cables, so you can see that's running back there. So I'm going to test out the parking brake real quick. So as you can see, it's moving. So here's a moment of truth. Does it still move when I pull the parking brake? Parking brake's up. It doesn't move at all. It's just a hub that's moving there. Now you guys may not think that's like super cool or whatever, like, oh cool, you have a working handbrake, but to me that's like, that is so cool to me, because I did that. I did that. Are you good? I did that. So I would recommend testing it, because if it doesn't work, then the rotor will pop off really easily, so you can make some adjustments and then try it again until it does work. Since mine already worked, I didn't really need to do any adjustments, so it was fine. Okay, so now that we've gotten past that part, now we can put the rotor onto the hub, and then we can put the caliper on. Okay, time to play the game of which caliper is which. This is right, this is left. Nice. So really quick, I just want to talk about the brake pads, because this is a little bit of a different setup. It's more of like a quick release setup, I guess. I don't really know how to properly explain that. Pretty much we've got two pins right here which kind of hold the brake pad in this general area. We have these two clips which I guess hold it in place, and then this clip here prevents these two pins from popping out. So that, I don't know if that's any sort of good explanation. I don't think that was a very good explanation, but it's the best I can do. I'm not very good at explaining things, evidently. I'm actually such a donut, man. There's a difference in the length. Who would have figured? I cannot believe I got so confused over that. Right, so that goes there, and this goes here, and that's that. So now that we have the caliper installed, now we're going to put the brake line on. And since I have the stainless steel brake line, we'll just install that. Obviously we need to do the other side, but I'm not going to show it or explain it because it's the exact same as for this side. So both sides, it's the same thing. Now here's a part where I'm not fully sure, and I may be completely wrong about this, but for cars with ABS, I'm not exactly sure how the sensor thing is set up for the brakes. I don't know if the ABS sensor will be able to mount to the backing plates or to somewhere else. I'm not entirely sure. My car doesn't have ABS, so I didn't have to worry about this at all. Right, now we're on to the part that I didn't record anything of, which is bleeding the brakes. But bleeding the brakes is a fairly simple process, so if you don't know how to do it, just Google how to bleed brakes, and there you go. You'll be gifted with tons and tons of videos on how to do it with ABS cars, with non-ABS cars, all sorts of cars, so you'll be able to bleed the brakes without me having to explain it, because it's gonna be a pain for me to explain it. Okay guys, the install is done, and I took it on its first test drive, and it went, it didn't go as smooth as I wanted it to. So first off, here's what it looks like, which is pretty sweet. I mean, it's rear disc brakes on a Corolla. That's pretty sweet. I'm gonna have to remove the spacers because the discs make the tires poke just a little bit more, and I'm not gonna roll the fenders anymore, so I'm gonna take the spacers off and live with a bit crap fitment, which, you know what, it's okay, that's not a big deal. My main concern was I'm hearing a really constant, almost scraping noise from here, and I've heard it a lot on my other cars, so I know it's something to do with the rotor or the pads, and I'm not quite sure what's causing it, but this backing plate was slightly bent when I got it, so that might be it. I tried to bend it back and I thought I got it right, but I might not have bent it enough, and so the rotor may be scraping on the backing plate. That's kind of my best guess, so I'm gonna have to take a look at that, as well as taking off the spacers. Overall, I'm quite pleased with how this turned out. This is definitely one of the bigger mods done to this car, and now that it's done, you know, I don't regret it. I don't regret doing this mod. This was a great mod to do for this car. So anyway, that is pretty much going to wrap it up for this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you go ahead, leave a like, comment below, subscribe to the channel if you are new. I'll give you guys an update either in the next video or the video after on how it's like driving with this and how it's like living with this, and just an overall update on how this setup is doing. I'll show you all the changes I make and what I fix and what I don't fix, and that's gonna be it, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.